Hey out there, rock and rollers. Welcome to the 108th episode of the Ugly American Werewolf in London Rock Podcast, brought to you by your host, me, Mac B, the Wolf, and I will be joined as usual by my partner in crime and co-host, Action Jackson, from the East Coast of the United States. And we want to thank everybody for tuning in to last week's show on Van Halen's Diver Down. It's an album that's very much maligned in the Van Halen catalog because of its brevity, because of all of its covers, and because of some of the little short songs on there that aren't even really songs. But it's still got some classics on there, like Pretty Woman, like Cathedral, like Dancing in the Streets. So we really appreciate all the feedback and all the help that we got from our buddy Daryl for helping promote that, because he is a great big Van Halen fan. And I want to wish everybody happy holidays. We are currently in the middle of Hanukkah. We are rapidly approaching Christmas. And no matter where you are in the world or what you might celebrate, we want to wish you a safe and happy holiday. And if you're a rock and roller looking for something, you got to go check out our sponsors, rarevinyl.com. Rarevinyl.com have been in business for almost 40 years. They have a core of 1 million rare and pristine objects for the rock fan of your life in their catalog, and they ship all over the world. They have amazing record buyers to find the best quality stuff out there, procure it, and then get it to you in pristine condition. I've been to their warehouse. I've met their team. They're an amazing group. And look, if you use code PODCAST, PODCAST, that'll save you 10% off your order. So it may be a little late in the game for people outside of the UK, but in the UK, if you're hearing this and you need something for Christmas, for Hanukkah, for someone's birthday before the end of the year, whatever it might be, go to rarevinyl.com, use code PODCAST, save 10%, and find that special LP, 7-inch single, tour program, whatever it is they might be looking for. Get it for that special someone from rarevinyl.com using code PODCAST. Now, this week, we are proud to welcome a talented and experienced musician, someone who's played on more than 50 gold and platinum records, a guitar player, a sometime bass player, and a very talented songwriter named Jim Cregan. And you would probably best know Jim Cregan maybe from Cockney Rebel for the UK fans. But for US fans, it's going to be his time with Rod Stewart, which kind of started on the Footloose and Fancy Free record and really went through all the way through the Unplugged and Seated album that came out in the early 90s. He co-wrote a lot of huge songs with Rod over the years, like Forever Young, and he's been a great producer, songwriter, been all over the world, and he's just a heck of a good guy. So we wanted to dive in to some of his brilliant career and tales from the road with Rod the Mod and the other greats that he's played with over the years, including one of our very favorites, John Wetton, including Ronnie Wood. And you'll hear some great stories with him really shortly. But at the moment, he actually has a Christmas single available called A Child Is Born. It's actually an old Johnny Mathis song that he reworked and added some lyrics to as a benefit to Angel Force USA, which is an organization that he's a part of that helps create awareness for suicide prevention for veterans. And as someone who has many members of his family who have served in the military and know that a lot of veterans struggle with things like PTSD, and a lot of them have a hard time asking for help when they're having a hard time. Because think about it. Warriors are told to keep all that negative stuff down, to be tough, to fight through everything. Well, it's not that easy. So this organization, Angel Force USA, is designed to help bring awareness and to try to reach out to folks of our military community who might be having problems. And the single, A Child Is Born, all proceeds go to the benefit of Angel Force USA. So we asked Jim to come on this show to talk a little bit about the single and the organization and the benefits. And then we dive into some rock and roll history, some of his tales of the road, tales in the studio with Rod, with some of these folks that you all will know. And he's a great guy, has wonderful stories, and very generous of time and spirit. And I think you're really going to enjoy it here. But first, just a little bit of business. We need you to download and subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. And I don't care where it is, Apple, iTunes. We like Good Pods. It's a great place to interact with other podcasters. But wherever you get your podcasts, please subscribe. Please download. Downloads make a big difference to us. It helps us sell our show. And if you have the opportunity, please give us a positive review. Those positive reviews just help us find other rock and roll fans like you and help grow our show. And I've grown our show quite a bit in 2022, thanks to all you listeners, thanks to Pantheon Podcast, which is a network we are a part of with maybe 100 other shows. And we've got a lot of great friends who we've either been on their show or we've had them on our show, like Paul Stevenson from Vintage Rock Pod. Paul put us in touch with Jim's publicist and got him on the show for us. So we thank you, Paul, for everything you've done for us over the years. And you can hear us on his show, This Day Rocks, on occasion. We also love Christy Alexander Hallberg of Rock Is Lit. We love Jay at The Hook Rocks. We love Martin Popoff, History in 5 Songs. And we especially love Tom and Zeus of the world's #1 rated KISS podcast, Shout It Out Loudcast. The guys are hilarious. They're super knowledgeable on KISS, and they have 3 other sidecasts that'll keep you cracking up and inform you just as much, like Zeppelin Chronicles, Album Review Crew with Sonny Pooney, and Dorm Damage. So make sure you check all that out. Proud to be a part of that. And of course, Christian Swain, the founder of Pantheon Pods, he also runs Rock and Roll Archaeology. Check that out as well. So just before Christmas here, in the midst of Hanukkah, we are talking with a true rock and roll troubadour with incredible stories, the gift of gab. It's Jim Cregan, guitar player and songwriter for Rod Stewart, right here on The Wolf. Let's talk a little bit about Rod Stewart in our lives growing up. What was your take? I mean, how did you first realize who Rod Stewart is, and what was your take on him when you came of age, like starting to like rock and roll and like, okay, now I know who this Rod Stewart guy is? Talk about that a little bit.
Well, that's kind of the problem. I think probably the first time I ever really ran into Rod Stewart was probably Baby Jane on MTV.
Okay.
And it was not like anything that he'd done in the 70s. Nothing like the Faces, nothing like it. It was more pop, synth. And it was either that or Infatuation, I think, both on MTV.
Right.
Now, Infatuation was cool because it had this dude on it that was playing guitar that I didn't know who it was, but he looked pretty cool. It turned out to be Jeff Beck, but I didn't know it at the time. But yeah, to me, he was always more of a pop guy than a rock guy.
Yeah.
And then so getting into these older records, you see, now, wait a minute, Rod. To me, you were kind of wasting yourself. I mean, he was selling a lot of records and being a huge star, but to me, the older stuff is definitely more pleasing to me than the 80s kind of pop stuff he was into.
Hell yes, man. Yeah, absolutely. No. And I think Infatuation was the first time as a kid in the MTV era where I'm like, okay, here's this guy, Rod Stewart, and that's him doing this song Infatuation, which was a pretty big hit. Of course, I knew Hot Legs from the radio. Okay. You're in My Heart from the radio, Maggie May, from the radio, that kind of stuff. But then when we were in high school, and he had a huge hit with like a song that Jim co-wrote, Forever Young, great big hit. But kind of weird video. He's riding around in the back of a truck with somebody else's kid, and he's like holding him and stuff like that. Like, is that Rod's kid? Nope, not here. It's like, oh. And yeah, it's kind of weird, But, as brilliant as that song is for a 15-year-old, when that came out, like, that's not cool, right? That's not Van Halen. That's not AC/DC. That's not Def Leppard. That's not what I was that's not what I was into at the time. So then I'm like, okay, well, he's soft, he's adult contemporary. He's not a badass kind of thing. And then it wasn't until we were in college and I got the Beckology, the Jeff Beck box set, and come to realize, hey, Rod Stewart and Ron Wood were in the Jeff Beck group together, and they made some killer stuff. And like, Rod Stewart does killer rock songs? I thought he just did that, he did disco stuff. Look, Rod is popular with the ladies both on and off the stage, right? I mean, correct. That's his shtick. It's kind of always been his shtick. He goes from one model to the next. And always has, and I assume probably always will. And that's great that women love him. My problem was in 1988, what do women my age love? They like New Kids on the Block. Like, that's why we have New Kids on the Block, is because of women.
And so and then the next generation is, okay, well, like my mom and their friends probably like this Rod Stewart stuff,
Right.
I don't, it's not heavy enough for me.
Yeah.
So Rod was much maligned, at least to me. And then when I started to learn a little bit more about him through Jeff Beck and through the Faces, and then even the Unplugged record, which was big for him. It was, multi-platinum record, had successful singles off of it, And of course, even though Jeff Golub, who's a really great guitarist in his own right and has played with a lot of folks, and Jim Cregan were both there on stage, who gets all the credit for being on stage and playing guitar during that show, right? It's Ronnie Wood. And of course, at the time, I thought that was amazing because I couldn't have been a bigger Stones fan. And Ronnie was about to go back out and do Voodoo Lounge with the Stones, right? So at the time, I was excited about it. But now looking back, I'm like, man, Jim Cregan was there for all those things from like 78 on, and he co-write all these songs were great. And then Ronnie comes in and kind of steals the thunder,
But I mean, to be honest, when that record came out, probably would not have even checked it out if Ronnie had not been on that.
True.
Yeah. I mean,
just because of the time in our lives. Yeah,
correct.
Absolutely.
Correct. Yeah. And I mean, this was kind of before I knew, like when I found that first Faces record, why did you not stick to this? Well, you didn't stick to it because you found greater success doing the kind of the more adult contemporary stuff.
Yeah. And the disco stuff and that kind of stuff. And I don't blame, looking back now, it's easy to, say, okay, well, that's when he went disco and then he went pop and then he kind of went back to roots and da-da-da. It's easy to look back and kind of do all that now. When it's happening, you're just going forward and you're trying to figure out, okay, how do I make something that's new? How do I make something that's going to be on the charts? What's out there now? And how do I fit in with that?
And how do I stay relevant?
Yeah, exactly. And in a time when punk was huge.
Yeah.
Footloose and Fancy Free sold very well, man. It's awesome.
And I mean, even today, he's still relevant, still selling out stuff because he went back and did like the American Standard catalog. I mean, he continually reinvented himself to keep him relevant, even into, I mean, what are we at 2022 now? I mean, he's still touring, he's still selling tickets out all over the world. So kudos to him. All those guys who started with him, who just kind of faded away to nothing. Yeah. If you want to talk, I mean, if you didn't say anything else, you just said, what is the definition of a rock star? Rod Stewart's up there on the Mount Rushmore.
Yeah. He still gets points off for some of that American Storybook stuff. I mean, now, look, just because I don't like it doesn't mean other people don't like it. It sells very well. Like you said, it helps him sell tickets. It helps him stay out there without having to. And it's hard to write new music. We talk about this on the show all the time because someone's going to say, well, that's not like the Faces. That's not Hot Legs. That's not Maggie May. Someone's going to say, no, because I'm 50 or I'm 60. I write songs differently. I write about different things now, right? I can't just write about Hot Legs. Doesn't mean I don't like Hot Legs anymore. Just means I have a different perspective,
He definitely still likes Hot Legs.
That he does, so but he can't write Hot Legs 2 when he's 60, So it's hard to do that and have it always compared to your older stuff. So then it's like, all right, let's do some stuff that are already classics and I'll just rework them my way. I mean, when he did Downtown Train, Tom Waits song, very different from the Tom Waits version. That's really changing it, making it new, making it your own. So I give him a lot of credit. And I feel like that was almost like the beginning. Although, we'll talk about it with Jim. I mean, on Footloose and Fancy Free, there were covers on there, sure. And Rod can take something that's like a Motown song and make it more his own or something like that. But I feel like it was in that, when he realized he could take someone else's song like Tom Waits, totally change it around and then have a huge hit with it. He's like, well, then I can probably do that with other songs too. And why do I work so hard to write these new ones when it would be just as easy to go do songs that I love?
Right. And that's the thing is, you've got to have X number of minutes on an album or, CD. It's got to be at least 45 minutes or longer. And if you're, I could sit here and pound out another song that may be great and maybe not. Or yes, I could take something that I love from the past, rework it, get it in there and help me move this along. And who knows, maybe even pick up some new fans along the way. If you cover something like you wouldn't think he would do a Motown song, but then here he is doing, Keep Me Hanging On.
Right. And I don't know, how would you describe his voice? It's kind of raspy. It's kind of down and dirty. yet it has a lot of power to it.
And it's it's one of those voices where even if you weren't a huge fan, you hear him, you know it's Rod Stewart. It's very distinctive. It's one of a kind. He doesn't have, it's weird because you wouldn't think it's a great voice to sing, but it is, because no one sings like him. It's a distinctive signature that he's got.
Yeah, and even though it's got this cool, heavy, raspy, bluesy sound to it, listen to "You're in My Heart." Listen to "Forever Young." That's not some down dirty blues singer. That's a real songwriter, real singer, like belting that out smoothly. Big hits, that stand the test of time. It's not just because he can go down and dirty and do some nasty blues. It's because he can really sing. So and apparently still can.
Yeah. I mean, that's what from the clips that I've seen, because I was doing research for this. What's the latest stuff that he's done? He still sounds pretty good. Like, yeah, you're not going to sing like you were when you were 25. You get that? I mean, he's got to be pushing. He's got to be in his 70s now, I would think.
Oh yeah.
But yeah, still impressive for somebody at that age to go out there and still do it.
Hi, I'm Deborah Bonham.
And I am the Irish werewolf in England, Peter Bullock.
And you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London.
Hi. Hello. Who's who?
So I'm Mac, but
I
you can
can't
call
see it now. I can see your name down there. And you're Gary. Hello, Gary.
Yes, sir. Good morning.
How you doing, guys?
Doing all right.
Very well, sir. Are you just getting back from the U.S.?
Yeah, I got back last night. Yeah. So I'm a bit jet lagged.
I can imagine. So
we appreciate you joining us.
Oh, it's okay. Pleasure. Nice to see you. Can you hear me all right? Is everything okay sound-wise?
Yep, you're coming through very, very well. Thank you. Okay. Thank you kindly. Yeah. And thanks for having us on or coming on to our show. We are good friends with Paul Stevenson of Vintage Rock Pod, and he suggested to give you a call to see if you might come on, because you've not only got great stories and an amazing career to talk about, but you've got this interesting new Christmas single out with your band that we wanted to learn a little bit more about.
Okay. Do you want me to jump in on that now?
Yeah, why don't we start with that? And then, look, most of our show is about reviewing classic albums that are having like a 40th, 50th, 45th, anniversary or something like that. And so we kind of want to get into Footloose and Fancy Free, since it was your first with Rod. It's having a 45th year at the end of the year here. But before we get to that, and we've got a lot of fun questions, why don't you tell us a little bit about Cregan and Co. And then this charity, not only the single itself, but the charity that benefits from it.
Okay. So I'm involved in a charity called Angel Force USA, which is a suicide awareness program particularly for the US military. And a very dear friend of mine, who's a family friend, a woman called Anne Dunsmore, started this charity some years back. She was in Britain on a kind of holiday, I think, and came to see my band, liked the band, and said, would we come over to America and play at a gala for the charity? And we said, yeah, sure, of course, but then immediately thought, no, that's never going to happen. People come along and say, we'd like you to do this or that. We, having been in the business for many years, I thought this is probably a load of rubbish. But sure enough, some tickets showed up and some hotel reserved. And so off we went, and we played this charity and made $300,000, which I thought was a good start. So I've been doing it ever since. That was probably about 4 years ago. And so last year, she said, because I'm now in charge of whatever music that comes into this charity, the idea being that the music is one of the ways to raise awareness. Just as there were concerts for AIDS and all these other charities, the idea is that instead of suicide being something nobody ever talks about because it's such a horrible subject, we decided that we should use music to promote the idea that people need to talk to each other about people at risk. I mean, there are plenty of people. The hardest thing is to get a veteran to pick up the phone and call a hotline. They don't want to do that. They're warriors. They're trained to keep it all inside. So we're kind of working on that. And we've got some great people in the band now. All sorts of people. I'll get into that in a minute. Meanwhile, she says, will you do a Christmas record? And I said, yeah, of course. So I used to sit down with some of the guys in the band, listen to about 50 or 60 Christmas songs, and don't like any of them. And I think, no, I don't want to be, I don't want to do that. I'm not doing this, I'm not doing that. So
I'm familiar with that feeling, actually, to be honest with you.
It's not that I don't like Christmas music, it's just I didn't want to do it.
Yeah.
So we came across this Johnny Mathis track called When a Child is Born. And I said, oh, that's perfect, let's do that. Then, of course, there's some talking in the middle of it. I thought, well, I don't know, only Elvis can do talking in the middle of records. I can't. And I don't really like it anyway. So I wrote a bridge to go in the middle of it, just to get away, because it's a one-trick song. There's only one bit, one melody, and it repeats over and over in various forms. So the next thing is I send it off to her, and she says, oh, this is a beautiful recording. What is it? And I thought you were going to do a Christmas song. And I go, God, what? What now? She says, this was never a hit here. It was like this Monty Python's cheese sketch. I don't know if you remember that. Where he goes to the cheese shop and says, well, have you got any cheddar? He says, no. He says, but it's the most popular cheese in the world. Not round here, sir.
That's right.
So that was the reaction to the song. Not round here, Jim. So fast forward to sometime in September, and I was browsing through my hard drive looking for something else. I bumped into this recording. I thought, we'll put it out ourselves. So I called them up in America and said, do you mind if we put this out? We'll credit you, and of course you'll benefit from it, but it will go out under the name of Cregan & Co. instead of the Angel Force USA banner, which is the band name. I thought, then I can glean a little bit maybe of name recognition. That's always helpful, and the money will go to Angel Force. So that's what we did, and suddenly people like it. I didn't realize. Well, we got a publicist, which is something that you really need to do if you're going to sell records or give records away or whatever it is you do.
Right.
And so now we're number 30 in the Heritage chart, which is quite amusing. So that's where we're at the moment. I'm sorry, that's a very long-winded reply. Watch out for the Irish boy who you can't shut up, right? That's me.
You've got 1.5 of them on the other side of the line here. So we get it.
Okay.
We appreciate that. I have members of my family who served in the military. Some of them suffer from PTSD. And you're right. You're taught to be tough. I mean, even as a man who wasn't in the military, you're supposed to bury that stuff deep down, right? Let alone if you've actually seen some of these horrible things in war, come back to try to assimilate. It's not a broken arm. People can't say, oh, I'll fix that. Or you're missing an arm. I'll get you something to help you get along. Because people can't see it, they don't know what to do. Plus, in America, and I think it's better in Europe. I lived in London for 3.5 years. I lived right down the street from Abbey Road. Now I live in Amsterdam. And I feel like mental health is more of an open conversation in Europe, way more than it is in America.
I think you're probably right. I know that being part of this conversation with the veterans, I mean, I just came back from the symposium in Palm Desert, or Rancho Mirage, I think it was. And it was unbelievable, the people I was talking to. They had 4 Gold Star mothers. I guess you guys know what that is. This is women who've lost their sons.
Lost their sons or daughters.
And some of them had lost their sons to suicide. And some of them had lost them to action. Well, these women got up and talked about what it felt like, and especially the girls whose sons had taken their own lives. And they said, the military don't like to accept the fact that, well, the reason they want to take their own lives is because of the terrible things they've seen or the terrible things have been done to them.
Of course.
And so there's a kind of a catch-22. If you admit that your son committed suicide, then you don't get any benefits, right? So it's a terrible mess. Our job really, though, is to make what we're doing now is really helpful. Talking about it. I don't know anybody over a certain age that hasn't been touched by suicide in their lives. It's a rare occasion. And when we've had these discussions, sitting around the dinner table, and somebody says, "So, who do you know that happened?" Well, it could turn out to be a nephew, a cousin. It could be a family member. It could be a great friend. I mean, I have those experiences. And some people will admit that they've had times when they were considering it themselves. You only need somebody to really reach out to you at the right moment, put their arm around you, talk to you and say, are you really feeling all right? Do you want to come over and have a pizza, or do you want to go and have a beer, or whatever it is that you need to do to make the connection stronger? Sometimes that's all it takes. And people that have been saved from committing suicide. I wrote a song about that called The One That Got Away. And the idea is that if you can save the person from that one time when they're really into it, they may never go back. Many people don't go back. They think, well, I went to the very edge and looked over, and now I look around, I see my children, my grandchildren, my aunts, whatever, see my friends. It's anyway, I think you got the idea. I'm going to leave it at that. But it's Angel Force USA is the charity.
Well, I know in the United States, it's not a subject that people feel super comfortable about talking about, even though a lot of people have been touched by it. So thank you very much for bringing it out into the open and hopefully making it a little bit easier for people to talk about.
Thanks. That's exactly, you've hit it right on the head. That's exactly it. That's the problem. And the reason that there aren't many people like Angel Force USA and aren't many charities taking care of this is because nobody wants the job. How to clear a room. Hi, I'm just coming in to sit down with you and have dinner. Right, I'm just going to talk about suicide. Oh, bong.
Kind of a bummer, yeah, no doubt. Well, I know people can download and stream it on Spotify. Can they buy it?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, so I think it's on Apple. Yeah,
Apple. Okay, very good.
Yeah, I'm sure it's available. Yeah.
So go to iTunes and buy it there. All right, let's shift gears a little bit here and talk about maybe something a little more festive. You were, in the 70s, you worked with a lot of different people. You worked with different bands, and you knew John Wetton. We're going to have to come back to that, Jim.
Oh, cool. Okay.
Huge John Wetton fans on the show. Come 77, you hook up with Rod Stewart, who, had this career with several bands, including Jeff Beck Group, Faces, created a cool sound. Well, not his first solo album. He had several before you got there. But by the time you got to Footloose and Fancy Free, I don't know, it sounded like he had started to find his own sound maybe outside of the Faces, maybe away from Jeff Beck, away from Ronnie. He's like, now I'm kind of finding my own thing. And obviously had a couple of huge hits off that record. What do you remember? I mean, and besides you, some great heavy hitters are on there. Steve Cropper plays, Nicky Hopkins is all over it, and John Mayall blows harp on the song you co-wrote, right? Born Loose.
Oh, yeah, okay. Yeah.
What do you remember from those recording sessions?
Well, I remember if we start with where I got the job, I was the last man in. They'd got the rest of the band, Phil Chen and Carmine, John Jarvis, Gary Granger, Billy Peake. And Rod always wanted this 3-guitar lineup, and they'd actually started rehearsing. I was in LA. I'd already met Rod to talk about getting, playing in the band, but as I was explaining about Ann Dunsmore asking us to come to America, I had this great meeting with him in the pub. He showed me his favorite trick about going into the pub with a lot of people. It's just as you get to the threshold, you bend down and tie your shoelace, and everybody's in there, and so you're the last one in. So you don't have to be the first one at the bar and buy a round.
Right. Very rock star, Rod.
He used to get a lot of fun out of that. It's not that he's not mean. He's never been mean with me at all. He's very generous with me, but that was one of his games. Very good. So I have this meeting with him. We get on great, and he says, "Well, I'm going back to LA next week." This all takes place in London. I said, "Okay, well, we'll be in touch." And I never heard anything from him for months. And then I was married to a girl called Linda Lewis, who's a singer, a lovely singer. In fact, she sang on "Do You Think I'm Sexy?" And she was being produced by Cat Stevens, who we both knew quite well because we'd been on a Cat Stevens world tour together. Okay. She was the guest artist and I was the band leader of her band.
Gotcha.
So Steve, as we used to call him in those days, said, Jim, will you come out and play guitar and come with Linda? And, it'll be a bit of a laugh and everything. So I said, yeah, great. That'll be fine. So I get to LA, go in the studio, cut the tracks with a lot of really grown-up LA session heads. So I was absolutely in awe of them, scared shitless. They were so good, and I was so, I'm just some bloke from the south of England, fumbled his way into a few good bands. So I do my part, and everything seems to be all right. And then it's vocal time, so I got 2 days off. I wonder if that bloke Rod still needs a guitar player. So I phoned up. He'd given me a number, which I was happy to say wasn't the office, it was his home. And I spoke to Britt Ekland first, who if you're old enough to remember what Britt Ekland used to look like in the 70s,
the golden gun.
I was over the moon to speak with her. She's one of the most beautiful women in the world.
I believe you.
And I didn't really want to talk to Rod. I didn't want to keep on the phone with her. She guessed Rod. And I said, "Are you still looking for a guitar player?" He said, "Well, yeah." He said, "Why don't you come down this afternoon and play and see what happens?" So I went down and played and saw what happened. He said, "Do you want to join the band?" And I said, "Yeah, why not?" That was actually my reply.
Fantastic. And you were with him for more than 15 years. You played on some amazing...
Oh, yeah, 20, more like 20. On and off, though, I did take a break. I took a break when I fell out with the management. So to get to the point you were making about Rod getting a sound of his own, when he formed his own band, because all the other solo records were done with session guys, and he never toured those records. So this was a band he was going to tour with, and we were going to make the records and write the songs, which is exactly what we did. And he said he wanted a band vibe, and we should assume that that's what we were. We were the Rod Stewart Group. That was originally the name. And we were treated beautifully, absolutely beautifully. We got a share we were shareholders in the business.
Wow.
And, the concert receipts, we got a share of those. We were on session money for the recordings, very good session money, but the gigs, we got a share of that. And it was great. I made loads of money and had a wonderful time. And Rod encouraged us to write and encouraged us to have fun. And it was a wonderful time. Absolutely brilliant. That went on for, on and off for about 10 years. And then there was a fallout with the management. Billy Gaff, who I heard was known to be, as we might say in Britain, light-fingered. So that was the demise of him. And in came this chap, Arnold Stiefel, who was a friend of Rod's then wife, Alana Hamilton. And he was a showbiz kind of bloke. His family had had a theatre or something. He might have been an agent for somebody quite successful like Barbara Streisand for a minute or two, something like that.
Okay.
He didn't know anything about rock and roll. He didn't know anything about making records. He didn't know anything about what we do, and insisted that he would tell us or instruct us or expect us to do what he said. And I was so against all that. And he just really got in the fucking way. So shortly after he sort of started throwing his weight around, I said, I can't have any more of this. So I went out to dinner with Rod and said, I'm sorry, mate. I've got to go. And he said, we'll still work together, but if you've got to go, you got to go. So that was that. And I went off to be a producer.
Nice.
But yeah, there was a great vibe, wonderful vibe. And that first record, what is it? I've got a wall full of platinum records behind me, behind the camera here.
Yeah, what do you have, 50 gold and platinum records to your name or something crazy like that?
Yeah, I give them away because, sometimes I can't be bothered to go and get a birthday present, so I'll give them a platinum record.
All right, well, let me send you my address in Amsterdam.
Yeah. If you're ever feeling like you want to get rid of one.
Yeah, I've got a load of them. It's still in the garage. But it's wonderful to get these awards. You feel really good. After a certain number, that kind of, you think, I shouldn't say that because it's very, very hard to be successful. But when you are successful, it seems perfectly normal. That's what's so weird about it.
Right. It's like expected, right?
Pardon?
Once you've done it, it's expected, right?
Sort of. It used to be really strange. We put a record out, we just expected it to be a hit. It wasn't any kind of... It's so weird how your mind will adjust to whatever it is. I appreciate now much more how difficult it is to have hits than I did when we were making records. I've been on a few hit records over the years, which is great. Sure. I'm thrilled to bits. Listen, here's the real truth about my career. I'm unbelievably lucky. That's the whole story there. I'm really lucky. I've been standing in the right place when, as my friend said, it's like football. You've got to be standing in the right place when the ball gets crossed and you just put your foot out and it goes in the net.
Right. Yeah. Well, but then Lionel Messi is like the luckiest guy in the world, right? Because he's always there, ready to.
He's always in the right place.
So there's some
maybe.
luck. There's some luck involved, but then there's you've got your talent, your work ethic behind you to make it. When that luck comes around, when the opportunity to be in that right place is there, you can take advantage of it.
Yeah, I guess. I mean, it took me a long, long time to be able to take a compliment. Because most of the guys that I talk to, they will tell you that they have gaps, especially us self-taught guys. They will tell you they've got great gaps in their musical knowledge. And those gaps are the things that they're afraid somebody will call them on, So you don't know how to do this. You should know how to do it because you're a professional musician. But, we don't. I don't know how to do lots of stuff. But fortunately, I've got to the point where people only ask me to be me. They don't ask me to come in and be Steve Vai.
Right.
There's absolutely no chance of me being Steve Vai.
Or anybody else, yeah. It's just
I probably could get you his phone number if I really asked a lot of people. And there you go. Help yourself.
That's great. Well, one person's phone number who I desperately wish you could give us is John Wetton. We're just huge fans of his. We're big Asia fans. The stuff that he did with Steve Hackett over the years, like the Tokyo tapes, we just adore the stuff he did before he was in Asia, King Crimson and everything going back. Actually, when I went to see Yes doing Close to the Edge at 50 at Royal Albert Hall, his wife Lisa sat right behind me, and it took everything in my power not to ruin her show by just telling her how much I loved her husband and ask her a bunch of questions about him. So would you mind, could you tell us a little something about him personally? We know as a musician his talent, but could you give us an anecdote or tell us something about him as a man?
Well, I think the first thing you should know is that he used to babysit for my sister's kids in Dorset, where we all
Really?
lived. Yeah. And he used to come around and play the piano. She had a really crappy old piano in the living room. And I think he used to interfere with his girlfriend at my sister's house while he and his girlfriend were supposed to be babysitting. So,
the kids are in bed, What's the big deal? They're upstairs,
he was
right?
absolutely such a sweet human being, really lovely man. And I remember one day I needed to get up to London. I think my car had broken down because we're from the same area. He was in Westbourne, which is a suburb of Bournemouth, and I was in Christchurch, which is a suburb of Bournemouth too, on the other side.
Okay.
We didn't go to school together because I'm a bit older than him. But I remember I needed to get a ride up to London, and he had a van. It was one of those vans that in those days you could have a van that didn't have any passenger seats. So I drove to London, this really crappy old van, sitting on an orange crate, an orange box or a beer crate, on my bony ass imprinted on. You have this wood imprinted on my ass for as long as it took. In those days, there was no motorway, so it probably took about 5 hours to drive to London. I'll never forget because I really thought he could have put an armchair in there for me. Then I got him the job in Family.
Right.
Family was a really big act in England, had hit records. The Beatles were fans. It was a kind of prog rock, sort of slightly jazz, and the bass players had all done quite well. One of the previous bass players joined Blind Faith with Eric Clapton and Steve Winwood.
Oh, wow.
Rick Gretsch. Then there was John Weider, who went off to do Baroque music. And then there was, maybe it was John Weider that John Wetton replaced. So I was very friendly with these guys because we had the same manager. And they said, you know anybody who plays bass? I'm like, yeah, actually I do. I know a really, really good guy. He's a mate of mine. Known him for years. He's a lovely human being. He'll come and do the job. So he did the job. They loved him, as everybody does. I mean, you can't love John Wetton. He's talented. He sings great, plays great, really original thinker in his musical point of view. So then he left because somebody had offered him loads more money. And, we're all tarts, offer us enough money, we'll do anything. I won't do that. I just won't do that bit. But the other things, yes. So John went off, and I think he joined Uriah Heep, which was a strange call because I don't think he particularly liked that music. It was loads of money. Off he went. And then Family came back to me and said, John Wetton's left. I said, I know, I heard, that's terrible. You're going to take his place. Oh, what are you talking about? I'm a guitar player. I don't even own a bass.
I don't play the bass.
we bought you one. What do you mean you bought me a bass? I don't want to do the job. No, we bought you a bass and you're going to be the bass player because it's your fault. It's all your fault. If you hadn't recommended him, we've had it for 2 or 3 years, and now he's gone and it's your fault. So I went, oh, what the hell? Okay, so I joined family, played bass for a couple of years, made 1 album with them. And funny enough, I got a phone call when the band broke up. I got a phone call from Mick Ralphs. He said, I'm putting this band together. He said, we're looking for a bass player. And I said, no, Mick, I'm sorry. No, I don't want to play bass anymore. I said, tell me more about it. He said, well, it's got Paul Rodgers singing it. We're going to call it Bad Company.
Right.
And I said, no, Mick, sorry.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked. That
I wonder what would have happened if that had been me. It'd been interesting to see.
Been fun. No, yeah, you're right. I mean, that's amazing. You had an amazing career. You worked with some extraordinary musicians. You know, Carmine Appice, he's got a show on the Pantheon Podcast Network, which we are a part of with Paul Stevenson. You know, he's extraordinary musician. Of course, his brother too, Vinny.
Yeah.
But no, you worked with it was an amazing band. Now tell me this though, because you've been touring for a while. When you go out on tour with Rod Stewart, is the tour is it up a notch? Are there things out there that you didn't see with some of the other bands? Is it the partying a little more out of control? Are the ladies at a different level? Tell me something.
Yeah, the partying is a little bit more out of control, no doubt about that. Yeah, several of the bands I was in had behaved badly, but you're right, it was a slightly larger scale.
Right.
And you start to become where you think you're invincible. And of course, you're not, because I got arrested in Florida and thrown in jail for the night, being part of the band, the splinter group of the band that trashed a hotel. And I still get stopped now, age 76. Every time I go into the United States of America, I get stopped and they said, so tell us about this thing, when you're arrested in Florida. And I go, that was 44 years
in 1976.
You gotta be kidding me.
Wow.
And they pull me over and I go into secondary and I sit there with, 30 other people and wait for my name to be called. And all, my family don't bother coming to the airport to pick me up anymore because I could be there for an hour and a half.
Right.
And I keep saying to them, well, can't you just take my name? Oh, look, I'm 70. I've never been in trouble with the police since. I'm 76 years old. Give me a break.
No, look, we went to college in Florida. Okay, we know how the cops are in Florida, and it's amazing that we don't have rap sheets just from being college students from Gestapo tactics they like to use down there. So, use it as a badge of honor.
Yeah, but see, my problem is that I think to myself, like I hear these stories, I'm like, wow, what would it have been like to party with those guys back in the day? But I realize now I'd have just been dead. Like that's like you guys were on like a pro level. Like, hey man, what happened to Jackson? Well, he died. He's in the fetal position. We dropped him off. Now he did have a giant smile on his face when he died, but he just couldn't handle it.
I love it. That is sort of true. Yeah, the partying was fairly grown up, and when you've got quite a big band. Like the first band wasn't that big. It was 3 guitars, 1, 2, 3, keys 4, bass 5, drums 6 and Rod. So it was a 7-piece. But then we added a brass section and a second keyboard player, that sort of thing. Then you end up sort of forming into sort of slightly smaller groups, because it's a bit unwieldy to go out for dinner with 11 guys,
Sure.
So we'd break it down. That didn't mean to say we weren't all tight, because we were very. There was the best band we had was when we had Jay Davis on bass. Not that he was, because Phil Chen, God bless him, I loved him. He was a fabulous bass player. But the combination of Jay Davis and Tony Brock was a really good rhythm section.
Cool.
Carmine and Phil could really play together great, but Carmine has a style that really suits a sort of small group thing, like Beck Bogart a piece, that kind of thing. Mm-hmm. They were fantastic. They were absolutely brilliant. But he's so flamboyant that if you actually want him to just sit down on the groove, it's very hard for him to do that, because he automatically wants to play bigger, So Jay Davis and Tony Brock and Kevin Savagar on keys, me and Robin the Mazurier on guitars, and Jimmy Zavala on saxophone. That was a fun band. My God.
Sounds like
Oh dear. Let's not talk about that now, because you'll only start to ask me about the Sex Police. And
that was going to be my next question. Paul's like, don't let him go unless you ask him about the Sex Police.
Okay.
And I'm like, that sounds interesting. Yes, so let's get on that.
Well, you've heard it said that it's the trouble always starts when you're bored. So
Right.
you end up in a town. For some reason, you couldn't stay downtown because all the hotels were full because they were having a chess contest or something.
Right.
And so you're slightly out in the boondocks. You get there after the show. It's you're there about 11 o'clock. There's no place to go. The bar's closing, whatever. And then the trouble starts, because you just you just need to do something to let off steam. The Sex Police was a very sensible idea. It was that those people that weren't having sex with anybody that came across their radar, their job was to stop whoever was thinking of having sex from having it. It was very straightforward. So that included the Sex Police knock on the door, which was very loud, and a shout of "Sex Police." And if you didn't jump out of bed, no matter what condition you were or no matter who you were with, and open the door in about 5 seconds, the door came in. Because the Sex Police would they'd boot the door right off the hinges, and it'd go whack like that, and in would pile the Sex Police. And if you had a girl with you, she'd be terrified. I don't blame her, and she'd hide herself in the bathroom, and the police would just throw the beds up in the air and chuck things out the windows and do all sorts of stuff and trash your room. And of course, the thing was, you had to pay for it, because the reasoning, just a bit like the John Wetton and me getting the job, it was your fault because you didn't open the door in time.
So not only was your room trash, you got it hung with the bill also.
No, yeah, absolutely so. Yeah. And if you called up the reception and said, "I don't know what's happened, but my room seems to be slightly disheveled. I'd like another room." You'd have to pay for that as well. And you might, if you got caught moving into another room and not taking your punishment like a man, you would then have the Sex Police would revisit you the next day, and maybe another couple of times as well. And everybody that was in the Sex Police, which was pretty well everybody in the band and some of the crew, and the makeup lady was in the Sex Police, but we had spies, so nobody knew she was the Sex Police apart from the small inner circle of the officers of the Sex Police, which were me and Rod and Robin the Missourier and who else? And one other person. Oh, Kevin Savia. But we would plot against each other. The great thing was the plotting against each other. So I would pretend that I didn't know anything about what was about to happen to my pal next door, but I'd schemed this whole thing of what I was going to do to him, get all the other guys in on it. And then because he would think, nobody, they can't see that I'm, an officer in the Sex Police. I think I was Seaman Staines. I think I was, and Rod was Major Bucks. And
there you go.
And just the usual stuff,
Yeah.
We had uniforms. We had walkie-talkies. We had toolkits, to dismantle things. You'd take your bed apart in about 30 seconds, and wild stuff. It was really good fun. Really good fun. And that's all. That was the main reason for having it. I mean, one night, so the bass player, we had a new bass player at some point called Charlie Harrison, nice guy, and the Sex Police visited him a couple of times and trashed his room and stuff like that, and he didn't have anywhere to sleep, because his bed was put everything in the bathroom, and the last thing that goes in is the mattress, doubled over, and it springs back against the door. And unless you can find 3 friends who are strong enough to push the door open so you can get inside and rejig the mattress, you have no match to sleep on the floor. So Rod said to him, he said, "Charlie, you're looking a bit tired." He said, "Yeah." He said, "I'm sorry, mate. I am a bit worn out. The Sex Policeman paid me a couple of visits recently." And Rod said, "Oh, that's awful. I'm so sorry to hear that." Of course, he knew all about it. He said, "Would you like to? I'm going back to England. We were in Ireland at the time. I'm going back to England. Why? I'll give you a key. Have a key to my suite and use my suite. Okay." So he said,
"Very nice.
Okay, great." So then the Sex Police heard about this, because we've got spies everywhere, and so we cornered Rod later. We said, you're interfering with Sex Police work here. What are you doing? How dare you interfere? You can't give Charlie a bed. We've been deliberately getting rid of Charlie's beds for the last few days. And then you come and offer him a bit of solace and a place to lay his weary head. I mean, you're not going to get away with this. And so he said, no, I suppose not. So we left it and we left it and we left it. And then there was the time where we thought, now we'll strike. So we got Charlie, took all his clothes off, apart from his paisley underpants.
Nice.
Gaffer taped him face down onto Rod's bed, with his feet, spread his arms out like this and his feet like that. So, and left him. And then and Rod came back to his suite with a young lovely and walked into the bedroom. There was this almost naked man face down. But Rod turned and he went, "Oh, hello, Charlie." What are you doing there? Oh, Charlie, the Sex Police. Oh, well, okay, well, I'll see you later. Didn't let him go or anything. Just had another room in the suite, carried on. And I think somebody later on let Charlie go. But I would have loved to have been there when he walked in and saw this naked man stripped.
Fantastic.
What would the girl have thought? Poor thing. We've probably put lots of these very nice young women into deep therapy for years.
Well, yeah, not enough for her to leave, right? It's not like she's like, "Oh, this is crazy, I'm out of here." It's like, okay, I'll just go with Rod into the other room, the suite. It's not that big of a deal.
It's a 2-bedroom suite. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
That's rock and roll, baby. Yeah.
So that was the sort of. It was great fun. That was the sort of stuff we would do, and I know it's stopped now because it's a completely different vibe. I know they're having a good time out there because I went to see them the other day. They're having a great time, but everybody's a bit more grown up. And now there's 4 or 5 lovely women are part of the band and singers and fiddle players and mandolin players and harpists, and they're great. They're great. They're a great crowd. But you can't, you got to grow up at some point.
Yeah.
What time is it now?
Unfortunately,
it can't be time yet.
Yeah.
Man. Come on.
I'm going up at 2:30. That's what I'm saying.
Good for you. No. We really appreciate your time here, Jim. And it's a great thing that you're doing to help veterans and help talk about suicide. We appreciate that very much. Real quickly, you kind of came into our world when you were in college. The Unplugged album was very big for Rod, big singles and stuff like that. And then it's the first time we saw you, at least we kind of knew who you were, could know who you were. Mm-hmm. But the thing is, you're on there. You're a fantastic guitar player. Jeff Golub's on there with you. He's a great guitar player.
Wonderful.
And then this other guy shows up, this former bass player converted into a guitar player, and he kind of steals the show. I'm like, what the hell? Now, at the time, we were huge Stones fans, so we thought, this is great. But looking back now, I'm like, he just took Jim's spot, man. What the heck, Ronnie? Like, you don't have enough else to do. What the hell, But it was a special moment.
I absolutely love Ronnie. He's a wonderful bloke. I love him. So anytime, And the Unplugged thing, right? Once we got the word it was going to happen, and I'd moved on at this point. I was producing records, and I was a staff writer for Universal, which was lovely. They paid me large amounts of money every year to write songs. Foolish people. And
God bless him.
And so I came back for the Unplugged recording. I didn't know I was going to go on the road until after it was selling so well that we said we might as well go out and take this around the country.
Yeah. So
Ronnie shows up the first day of rehearsal, which is just in some sort of, I don't know, big empty room. It was nothing. It wasn't a studio-y kind of thing. It was just a big room. Okay. Big empty room, and he backs he's got a Ford Bronco, and he backs it up to the doors, and this is like 2:00 in the afternoon, and he comes in, he says hello to everybody, and I've known Ronnie for years and years, and he says, anybody thirsty? Anybody a tiny bit thirsty? And I went, I could be thirsty. I might be. I could. Yeah, okay. Let's say Gary. You no, it wasn't Gary. It was Robin. Robin, you thirsty? Always thirsty, says Robin. Okay, come this way. So he opened the doors, and he's lifted up the tailgate of the Bronco and pulled down the bottom bit, and there's an enormous cooler in there that's as wide as the car. I don't know if it's specially fitted into it, but he lifts it up and there's every kind of conceivable thing you could want to drink in the back of the car. We said, welcome, Ronnie.
Yes.
Welcome.
Came prepared.
Yes.
And so that's how it did. We never ran so we had 3 weeks of rehearsal. We never ran the whole show all the way through, even once. I mean, that's how crap we are. So we'd play a couple of tunes and we'd have a drink and a break, and then we'd play another couple. And we'd start at 2, and by 3:30, we'd go, should we go down the pub?
Yeah.
Go down the pub, and that would be it for the day. So, we did a lot of tunes. We must have done, 20 odd tunes, but never, didn't do the whole thing in one go. So that made it kind of exciting when we actually had to do it all back to back. It was great fun. It was very exciting to do because it was really live. I mean, there was no mucking about. It was live. So
it seemed that way. I mean, it came through that way.
No, it was live. Yeah, it was really. And it was a joy. And then we took it on the road. And that was the last tour I did with Rod. It was 1993, 94. I still remember. And then after that, I just I played with him at a big event here in London, live in Hyde Park. I got up and played. I was only joking, in which there's a quite long guitar solo that I played back in the day. And that was the last major appearance I made with him. And then, then we just hang out. We've played charity gigs. We did one a couple of years back with Ronnie and Kenny Jones.
Oh yeah,
and guys out of my band, and my son and I, and we all played. We played for about 45 minutes or an hour or something. That was fun. It was quite expensive. We raised a bunch of money. That was the night that he announced that he'd had prostate cancer. He kept very quiet about it. So we all four of the people there, myself, Ronnie, Kenny, and Rod, had all had prostate cancer. And
wow,
that's a lot.
Yeah.
And so this was a charity. We raised a bunch of money. It was quite expensive. The seat, it was, probably about, $800 a plate,
plate, sure.
Only a plate, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And it was no freebies. Everybody had to pay. It was good though. We right good time. Lots of fun.
Excellent.
What do you expect? What do you expect? You put a bunch of the guys like us together. It's always going to be fun.
Well, look, it just looked like you guys are having fun. I mean, you see the Hot Legs video, you see any of the videos that you did over the years, it's like whether you like the music or not, look at them. They're enjoying doing this together.
Yeah,
maybe this is not your favorite song, or this is not your cup of tea, or you love this one, whatever. Like Forever Young was a huge hit for you. When I was 15 and I was into Def Leppard and Bon Jovi and AC/DC, that was like, that's adult contemporary. That's not for me. But now I come back as an older person, I'm like, well, that's a brilliant song. That's a wonderful song, right? That you co-wrote, and so it kind of just, you guys are always having fun. That's what matters. That's what's going to come through in the music, and that's why some of these songs survive as long as they have. Quite frankly,
I'm always of the impression that the vibe that you make in the studio somehow gets on the tape. I don't know how it is, but it seems to. It seems some sort of kind of magic. We were always having a good time making records. I made a decision a long time ago that I was not going to be in bands or do jobs where I didn't like the people. I just wouldn't do it. I mean, hence me leaving the Stewart band, not because I didn't want to be in the band. I didn't want to work with Arnold Stiefel.
Right.
No, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't.
Life's too short.
Yeah, exactly. Far too short. And all, I mean, the guys in my band, we get on like a house on fire. The piss taking that goes on is dreadful. And we're supposed to be, well, no, not we're supposed to be. We're going to play at Rod's Christmas party on Friday, this coming Friday. We're just talking about repertoire to the guys about what songs we're going to do. And we're going to do some of the songs that I co-wrote with him.
Sure.
And one of the things that will probably get said is we're going to do this song now. And Rod, no, you're not coming up to sing. No, you can't sing in this key. You know that. I've got a much younger singer, it's my friend Ben Mills, who can sing in this key. Not you. You go back. We've still got your wheelchair parked here to get you down to the hospital later if you strain yourself. It's going to be all that. It's going to be loads of really rotten piss-taking jokes.
Nice.
Now you said this is Rod. Is this like his personal Christmas party, like at his house?
Yeah, it's his house.
Well, that sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it's great. I go every year, and yeah, it's great. Hopefully Ronnie will be there, and Kenny, and it's interesting that one of the things I really like about Rod is that he's not one of those celebrities that only wants to hang out with other celebrities. He'll have his football team there. I mean, I went to a funeral for his brother, Don, died maybe 2 months ago, maybe a bit more.
Not long ago, yeah.
No, and his second brother died.
Both his brothers died. Yeah, that's crazy.
Terrible. I mean, I haven't spoken much to him. We've been texting a bit, but at the funeral for his first brother, Donnie, there was the football team was there. The Highgate football team, all these amateur players, they all came. A couple of, I think I was the only other musician there. And it's all people from all walks of life. He's very eclectic in his choice of pals. He's got people that, are garden designers. He's got people that are school teachers. He doesn't feel the need to surround himself with other rock stars in order to make himself look important. I think, like a lot of us, he saw what that was like in LA when Alana, his wife at the time, who was very busy being an A-list hostess.
Oh.
Right? And one of the things, we went to this big celebrity party that Rod and I went. And I only went because I was giving him a lift home, because I don't know what had happened to his Lamborghini, but he either had too much Bacardi and didn't want to drive it. And I was sober enough to drive him to his house. He said, well, let's go in. The wife's having a party, I know. This was about 1 o'clock in the morning. And there was a wild party in progress. And the only thing, and I realized this at the time, the only thing that his wife and I had in common, or have ever had in common, is we were the only two people in that room that weren't household names. Everybody else was unbearably fabulous. But she always thought of the band as the staff. We were staff.
Oh, right. You're the help, right? Yeah.
Really fucking annoying. Why don't you hang out with me and my friend, whatever, share or, and I'm not denigrating any of the people she had as friends, but not all celebrities are interesting. I mean, that's the bad news. Some of the actors are very nice, but terribly dull. You give them a script, they're wonderful. No script, not much happening. And same with some of the other people that were there. So but
they're pretty, right?
Yeah, they're really good. Yeah, they're nice. They're all right. I mean, I'm a dancer.
They're fun to look at sometimes. Yeah.
Oh, they're very fun. Some of them very fun to look at.
Yes. That's kind of what Hollywood's all about.
Yeah, there's a lot of that. Yeah.
Yes.
That'll make you happy.
It sounds like Rod wants to hang around with people who will tell him to go back and sit in the wheelchair.
Yeah,
and that's cool.
Yeah. Oh, he's brutal with me. I mean, he's always terrible piss taking with me.
But as long as he can take it as well as he gives it, then that's all you're looking for.
Oh yeah, he's all right with that. So absolutely, this is not a one-sided thing. No. But Kevin Savagar once said to me after I'd made some unbearably rude remark, he said, "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Jim Cregan, the man that knows how to walk the thin line between humour and unemployment."
Good point, Kevin. That's brilliant. But Jim, we can't thank you enough. This has been a lot of fun.
Great. Oh, I've loved it.
Yeah, you're welcome back anytime on the show. Anytime you ever have anything to plug. If you're ever coming to the Netherlands, you got to let me know so I can come see you and guys play.
You're out of Holland, you guys, are you?
Well, Jackson's on the East Coast of America, but I'm in Amsterdam now. Yeah.
Oh, brilliant. Okay. Oh, that's lovely. I love Amsterdam. It's a great town. Had a lot of fun there.
Yeah, thank you so much. By the way, Born Loose, our favorite song on Footloose and Fancy.
Oh, yeah. Gone down. Yeah.
I mean, it's got that cool double guitar. It's got some sexy blues in there, man. It's good stuff, man. It's more Faces than anything he'd done since the Faces.
Yeah, one of my favorites from, and I'm not sure it's on that album, is Only a Boy. Do you know that song?
I don't think I did.
It's a really, I think it's on that album.
It's not on that one.
No, it's not on this one.
It's not on
Okay.
Footloose.
Must be on the next one.
Let's go to
Only a
Blondes.
Boy. And it starts off with sort of this voice going, "Get down off the school roof, laddie." Come on, Stuart. No running in the corridors. It's all that sort of stuff. It's about what it was like at school. It's lovely. And it opens up with this line, "Stuart boy, you'll never be much because you're too busy acting the fool." And thank you, sir, for those few kind words on my last day of school. My mother said I could be a success if it only get myself out of bed. Words of wisdom, but I wasn't listening. I had plans in my head. It's good stuff.
That was on Tonight I'm Yours from 1981, which had the big song, I think, was Young Turks off of that record.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
But you co-wrote Only a Boy with Kevin and Rod on that one.
Yeah, I did. Yeah. It's a really good lyric. It's, he was less likely to follow any kind of format because each chorus has got a different lyric. So there's only a boy shows up, which is obviously the title line that shows up. But each verse, there's obviously the 4 verses are all different, but the chorus are all different too. Now that's pushing your luck because you're supposed to make sure you hammer it home, all that kind of crap. And I've got one last thing I'd like to mention to you about songwriting.
Please do.
I wrote this song that eventually Rod recorded. It's a song I wrote with Steve Harley. It's called "Best Years of My Life." I think it's called. Is that it? I can't remember. But it hasn't got a chorus. Okay.
No chorus.
No chorus. It's pretty well a verse and a bridge. And the verse is the chorus, or the chorus is the verse, whichever you like to do it. So I remember I took it to my publisher in California. I was living there at the time, and I gave it to this woman. I played it to her, and she said, "Oh, it's so beautiful. It's lovely. I really like it. I'm going to send it off now to the guys in Nashville because there's more people in Nashville looking for songs because there are more artists and who aren't writers." So I went, okay. So we sat there, and she got the guy on the phone, and he listened to it, and he said after, he said, yeah, this is a nice song, but it hasn't got a chorus. And I went, I said, so, Wayne, whatever your name is, so Wayne, just take a minute and sing me the chorus of Maggie May. Would you just give me the chorus of Maggie May again? I can't think how it goes. Well, there isn't one, is there? Oh, there isn't a chorus, is there? Well, funny that. So we said goodbye.
It's still a huge hit and an iconic song for Rod the Bod. Yes.
So there we go. No rules.
Yes. Thank you kindly. Happy Christmas, and tell Rod and the crew we said hello on Friday.
I will. Okay. Thanks a lot. Bye now.
Thanks.
Thank you, Jim.
Happy Christmas. That was fun
And
talking
you
to you. Bye.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Hi, this is Jim Cregan, and you're listening to The Ugly American Werewolf in London. And they're just the best.
What a fun guy, huh?
Well, I mean, I knew you were going to be right, but you were right. We could have talked to him for another 3 hours.
Easily. I mean, we just scratched the surface of a few things that we know and like,
Right.
Hey, great stories, And honestly, I have a better appreciation for Rod Stewart now after speaking with him for 40 minutes,
And especially I mean, I don't know. I don't really know anything about Rod, like in his personal life. But the fact that he still hangs around with like different people shows you like he's a dude that wants to have actual friends, not people who just, yes men, somebody who will tell him.
Or those phony LA people who are all plastic and fake,
Yeah.
I mean, because he did that for a while. Like it looks great from a distance. Oh, wouldn't you like to be in Hollywood with models and actresses and all these studio people? Oh, it'd be amazing. Then you get to know them and like, this is no way to live. This is not a community. These are a bunch of assholes.
Or like Jim said, like you look good and you sound good when you've got a script in your hand, but like, hey, what's going on? Nothing. Yeah, exactly. It's kind of hot today. Shut up. Yeah, you want somebody who actually will be a real person with you. So yeah, that's great. And I'll tell you what, I didn't get my invite this year, but I got to get invited to the Rod Stewart Christmas party. Oh, that sounds so.
Man, I'll come back to England for that. I'll catch the train and get back over there, man. Problem.
We'll be on the next flight over there. And the thing about Ronnie Wood backing the truck up full of beer or whatever he had in there, that's awesome.
Great story, man.
And then the whole thing, the whole thing. You thirsty? but could be thirsty.
Could be thirsty.
Yeah.
You get something to drink? I don't know.
Well, that's show number 108 with Jim Cregan, a fantastic guitar player and a songwriter who has an amazing career, more than 50 gold and platinum discs. And you heard him talk a little bit about his time with Rod Stewart through the years, working on some amazing songs, some amazing records, some fun tours, and dodging the Sex Police. Boy, what an amazing, fun time that must have been. He's the reason we do this show, is to meet interesting folks like him that maybe not everyone knows about, but has had a legendary career, has some great stories to tell, and is doing things for a good cause. His charity single, A Child Is Born, which was a Johnny Mathis song that he reworked and added a bridge to, or added some lyrics to, all to help raise awareness for soldiers that may be dealing with suicide. If you want to learn more about that, you can go to Angel Force USA, or you can go to Spotify or iTunes to stream or to download that song. And why not download it? All proceeds go to a very good cause and support the folks who have done so much to support us, especially in the United States. So with that, folks, as usual, we ask, did we get something right? Did we get something wrong? Did we miss the point? Did we leave out your favorite part? You have got to let us know. You email us, uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. You can tweet or DM us at ugly_werewolf or at actionjack72. Let us know the albums, the bands, the concerts, the DVDs, the movies, the rock properties that you want to hear our take on. We're starting to line up everything for 2023 right now. So go ahead and let us know. It's uglyamericanwerewolf@gmail.com. We thank our friends at Pantheon Pods for making this happen. Special thanks to Paul Stevenson of Vintage Rock Pod, who connected us with Jim's publicist, Mike, got us in touch with him. A lot of fun interview and conversation we had with him today. And we definitely want to thank our amazing sponsors, rarevinyl.com. I know it's late in the game, and if you're in America, it might be too late. If you're in continental Europe, it might be too late. But if you're in the UK and you're still looking for that gift, for that special someone for the holidays, go to rarevinyl.com. Use code podcast and save 10% off all of your orders. And with that, folks, next week will be our final show of 2022. I think we're going to do a nice long look at all the fun stuff that we got to do this year, all the many fun guests that we had on, the albums we reviewed, the shows we got to attend, both together and apart, and reviewed on the show, the fantastic artists that we had on the show. It was a special, special year for us. We appreciate you listening. You can download and subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Please consider giving us a positive review wherever it might be. iTunes, Spotify, Apple, Good Pods has been very good to us. Please consider it. It'd be the best holiday present you could possibly give B. Jackson is a good, positive, maybe 5-star review that just helps us find more rock fans like you around the globe. So until next time, rock and rollers, to all of you all around the world, be cool and stay safe.